Welcome to Goalie Science, the podcast where we talk about goalies and eventually figure out topics that we'll cover on a week-to-week basis. My name is Ben Cernick. As always, I'm here with Jamie Phillips and additionally a special guest. Jamie, who do we have?
We have our first guest. So when we were thinking about who to get on and the series of guests, got no one better than our goalie coach growing up, Derek Bujan. Derek, thanks for joining the Goalie Science podcast. So introduce yourself, tell the listeners, viewers who you are, what you do, and why are you our first guest?
Well, I'm honored to be the first guest, to say the least. My name is Derek Bujan of Bujan Goaltending. I am the reason these two are the way they are. Probably, I started coaching both of you guys when you were about 11 or 12 years old until the kind of conclusion of your playing days. And I got to say, I'm pretty proud to see how far you guys have taken it and the steps you guys have made along the way, and kind of continue doing this and watching this podcast grow and watching your careers grow. And that's kind of the dream of the goalie coaching kind of gig. Is the chances of anybody making the NHL are pretty low. Jamie, you got a little bit of a dabble at it, and but to see that you guys are going into your mid-30s now, and old guys, but going in your mid-30s and still in the sport, loving the position, and now passing that knowledge along is pretty much the reward that we all can ask for at the beginning of this. So, good luck, or congratulations on that, fellas. And guy from the outside is pretty proud and pretty impressed with what you guys have been doing.
Jamie's the nicest thing Derek's ever said to us.
Yeah, but it's only in a public forum. It's only in a public forum, but I definitely really appreciate that, Buj. And we say it all the time that, we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for you. So one of the things that we wanted to dive in is you've been goalie coaching for probably 25 years? How long now?
Let's not get carried away. 25 years. I'm 38 years old, so I don't know, maybe 13. I started goalie coaching last year playing junior, and I was just kind of teaching for a session. So that would have been in 2004, so 20 years. And I didn't get into it till full time, like 100% all in, until about 2019. So I dabbled in it for a while, kind of did it as like a little side hustle thing, but now it's like, this is the career, this is a full-time thing, and doing this full-time. So yeah, over those 20 years, we've definitely seen a lot of goalies, a lot of good goalies come through, and a lot of changes in the sport and the changes in how we coach. But it's been a while.
Yeah, and that's actually a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you. So someone who's been involved in coaching for as long as you have, I mean, obviously Ben and I have been, we did a similar thing where we would coach, out on ice with you, basically in exchange for lessons, but you have had different almost eras of goalies, and you continually get younger goalies. What have you seen as terms of what's changed over the years in terms of goalie coaching and goalie development?
Well, I always try to go in about 4-year blocks of evolution. So you guys would have been that kind of first. Jamie, you were probably the first that we kind of had a plan at the beginning. Back then it was very much the bigger equipment, the 12-inch pads, you guys talked about in your last episode. So the way we kind of taught was different. It was a lot more of a blocking style, a lot less kind of reading a release and reacting. It was get in position, get into a butterfly, and get hit. And then as the game changed and sped up and the rules in the NHL changed, the way we had to adapt, the way we coach changed. And we went to a little bit smaller equipment, which I love what you said, because I laughed. I said the same thing, is they try to make our equipment smaller to create more goals, and all it did was make better goalies. So we went from more of a blocking kind of not tracking to now we had to be a little bit better skaters, a little bit more get in position early and react. That was kind of the next phase of goaltending. Then the industry really dove into kind of box control and RVH and technique and stuff like that. And that took it to another level. And now I think we're going into a new kind of era where we've kind of meshed everything together. And it's now all of those phases are kind of coming into now. So now you need the skill development is more a priority than ever because of the speed of the game and the equipment evolution on the player side. Skill development with the player side is at an all-time high. Like if you think about 20 years ago, you could think of maybe 2 or 3 skills coaches. Now I can think of 20 skills coaches within 20 minutes driving distance where I am. and they're teaching scoring. So we have to adapt as the players get better. So just over the course of 20 years, sorry, my cat is here. Get out of here, kitty. Just over the course of 20 years, how much has changed just on our end, and where we're going to go in the future, who knows? But it's definitely evolving, and we have to keep adapting, evolving, and try to stay ahead of what's going to happen in terms of the game, but also what's going to happen in terms of skill development.
Buj, was there ever like, across all those, I guess, transition periods, was there ever something that you found was like one of the biggest concepts that's been hard to teach at any point? Was there something, because I know that there's some things that like Jamie and I talked about how we struggle communicating some stuff with goalies just based on it's a hard thing to do. Has there been something throughout this period that jumps out to you that was like one of the hardest things to get people on board with, or still one of the hardest things to get people on board with?
I think in the beginning, I think down skating was, I think, a hard thing for guys to want to do because they didn't see the value in it. I remember the first time I was doing it with Jamie was kind of huffing and puffing. But, like, look at it now. Like, look at the...
I think it was just out of shape.
Well, and you were skater, so it wasn't something that you were eager to do. But the down skating evolution now is if you don't post a down skating video on the internet, you're not getting any likes, right? Like, that's kind of where we've come over the last 10 years. But in terms of, and you guys said this in your pod a couple weeks ago, the hardest thing to teach, and I honestly believe that we can't teach this as goalie coaches, is positioning. Like, it's something that we can teach them what it is and when to use it and show them as much video as we want. But it's a feeling, it's an instinct. And you, as a goalie, you just know if you're in position or if you know you're not. And as goalie coaches, we can't go and move them and put them on angle. They're either on angle or not. And until they develop that feel, that's not something that we can teach them. Like, spatial awareness is something that they have to develop through exposure over and over and over again. And that's the 10,000 rule. And that's not something we can teach. And that's just something that they have to develop. So, and just like their instincts too, like guys in the NHL, they're not cookie cutter as much as we want to pretend like some of them are. They do a lot of the same things, but their instincts, knowing if a guy coming down off a one-on-one is going to drive the net or come around, like all of that it happens so quick in the blink of an eye that those are things that we can't teach. And it's frustrating because we want to, but we can't do everything.
It's always that's a great point. I think like the thing, even with that, like reading or instincts around what a player's gonna do is a really good call, because we always see the goal, or we see the goal of the highlight where like a goalie misreads a transition on like a one-on-one net drive where he like goes into an RVH too early, gets scored on. But we don't see how many times he did that right during the game before, because it's just not an exciting play, right? The player doesn't shoot the puck because he plays it properly. And it's stuff like that, I think, as goalie coaches, where we're looking for it. We're like, oh, he's really efficient at taking away that play all the time. But that one's, you're right. You don't even look at that unless you're talking about it.
Yeah, like an RVH goal, right? You get scored on short side in an RVH goal, and you're going to see that replay 40 times on ESPN or Sportsnet the next day. In reality, that same exact play has a 99 save percentage. So they're not showing the other 99 saves. They're just showing that one goal and then having a summit on why we need to change the way we coach or the way we play the game. And that's where it's like, as a goalie coach, sometimes we want to bang our head against the wall. But in our little bubble, we understand that, but it's just outside that bubble. And then the biggest thing for us as goalie coaches, especially when we get into a team setting, is our communication with the head coach. Mm-hmm. And that goalie gives up that goal, you're gonna get reamed in the intermission, and then it's not like, well, he stopped it 99 times before that. It's, well, he let the last one in. So, but that's our job. That's what we've signed up for, and it's never gonna change.
Ben and I have talked about how goalie coaches are that bridge between the goalie and the head coach, and it's crazy. I mean, it's a really important job to be a good communicator and to be basically an ally for your goalie. But getting on that, knowing that sometimes you're going to have to fall on the sword. And I think that's best because, it's our responsibility to take that quote unquote responsibility from the goalie. But I had a junior guy that I work with. He was frustrated because a college coach had reached out to him, and it's like, hey, super interested. We really like you. But, the one thing I don't know is can you make backdoor saves? And he asked me, and I was like, what do you mean? Can you make backdoor saves? He's like, I don't know. He just said, you just doubted my ability to make backdoor saves. It's like, we spent all season putting you in position so you don't have to make backdoor saves. That's if you're not making a lot of backdoor saves because you're already controlling the game. Like, that's what we want. So it's our job to be able to articulate and basically show the strengths of goalies and show where their weaknesses are. So with that, we mentioned it briefly in terms of coaching now is a lot of, box control and RVH and coaching is developed. I don't want to say where do you think coaching is going to go, but like, what do you think are some of the upsides and some of the downsides of really, like, there's a lot of goalie coaches right now. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of so-so ones. What are some of the positives? What are some of the negatives to just having access to so many coaches at the moment?
Well, to get one thing clear is, even if you have a so-so goalie coach, you have something. I didn't have a goalie coach on my team in my entire career ever, unless I went outside to get development. So even having somebody there during a practice or a game to bounce ideas off of is a positive. I read in a book once, and it really kind of made sense to me, is you can have a 10-year-old kid play a 60-minute game and not have a conversation with an adult for 90 minutes. So probably 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after. They don't talk about the game or have any dialogue on kind of what happened until they get in the car with mom and dad. Now we can talk about whether that dialogue in the car with mom and dad is positive or negative, but you get immediate feedback every single shift if you're a player. So if you're taking 30 shifts, you come off the ice, immediately the coach is in there with a board correcting you or talking to you. You have immediate feedback. You can get scored on in the first minute in a game as a 10-year-old, and you don't talk to an adult for an hour after that. So having any sort of goalie coach on your team, whether they're an NHL goalie coach or a dad helping you out, can't be a negative, number one. In terms of, there are so many goalie coaches, if there wasn't a demand for it, it wouldn't work. So if there's 1,000 goalie coaches in your area, that means that there's a demand for it. So they're bringing you some value. When you're looking for a goalie coach, find the one that brings you the most value. And that's your responsibility to find the goalie coach that best fits your game, best fits your personality, and it's going to help you get to the top. As a goalie coach, all we can do is offer the most value, but not change who we are for the goalie. It's the goalie's responsible to find the goalie coach perfect for them. And then that's where it gets into like goalie coaches recruiting goalies and stuff. Like, you know what, like that's a mistake I did back at the beginning of my career when I was trying to grow and get clients and, make this a business and a career. And since then, it doesn't work. Like, it really doesn't work if a goalie coach is going out and recruiting you. I firmly believe that the goalie has to go and find their goalie coach, not the other way around. So it's there's options everywhere. Like, I'm really trying hard not to say the wrong thing, because there's a lot of guys that I respect in this business and in the coaching world. And I don't want to say something that kind of, misleads people. But I really do believe that, it's on the goalie to find the goalie coach that best fits them. And we've talked in the past, me and you, Jamie, that, we tell guys, you can skate with multiple goalie coaches. That's not an issue. There's nothing wrong with skating with multiple guys. But if you think the grass is greener with somebody else, that's not necessarily always true. So just caution on, once you find the guy that is helping you play and helping you improve and you're constantly climbing the mountain, have faith in that plan and continue along that path until it either you don't not get any better, or you've got to the top of the mountain and now the career's over and you guys can kind of move on to what you guys have been doing.
Yeah, like I agree with all that so wholeheartedly, right? Jamie and I always say, yeah, go skate with a bunch of people, because again, as coaches, you need to be confident in what you're providing too, right? Like, that's like any business, right? Like, if you really believe in yourself as a coach and the product that you create, like, yeah, kids should go see if they find someone else or try other things, or it makes sense for mom and dad or whoever to help them try other stuff. That's totally normal. But, and I kind of know what you're getting around with and trying to tiptoe around the topic a little bit, because at the end of the day, like, most of the people we work with are kids, right? And there's definitely some people that shouldn't be working with kids all the time. That's just the nature of the world. So it's a bit of a sensitive topic sometimes, because at the end of the day, like you mentioned right off the start, Buj, is that like you want to see people grow. Like that is a job and for any coach, is to support the person through sport and out of sport throughout that process. And sometimes it's not always the best. And I think that's something that should be raised as well, is like just knowing that, yeah, go see other goalie coaches. And if you're with someone and you don't have the right feeling with it, there's nothing wrong with switching. But like you said, be aware that grass looks different colors for depending where you are sometimes too. Right.
And I think my coaching styles, I feel it's very different from a lot of other guys. So if you're getting the exact same thing from three or four different guys, then why are you seeing 3 or 4 different guys and getting the same thing? But if you're going to see 2 guys and their coaching styles may be different, but on the same wavelength, right? That's what you want. You can't have 2 guys that are completely teaching you different concepts and different ideologies. But you have to have 2 guys that mesh, and that's on the goalie to understand whether those 2 things are meshing together. But I feel like I spend a lot of my development, and it's getting younger and younger in the development phase curve now for me, where I'm teaching options and I'm teaching different options. And I didn't do that a lot in the past, but I don't know if I have a drill that I run that doesn't have at least one option for the puck handler, whether it's a shot, pass, he can move one this way or that way. And I feel like that has changed quite a bit in my coaching style. And I'm definitely now starting to see kind of the rewards of that, because the last, I say 18 months, the development that I've seen on a lot of my guys that I've had for a long time have really shot up. And that's something I'm going to keep continuing doing. And now I've kind of even gone younger, where even my guys that are going to be playing U9 and U10 this year are doing drills with options. And we've always, as goalie coaches, we know, and it's like, man, that goalie looks great in training, but he can't play the game. Well, I want to stop saying that about my guys. Is like, man, that guy looks terrible in training, but man, he's a gamer, right? Like that's the thing, because the scouts are coming to the games. They're not coming to watch your training sessions, guys.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So like when I do my goalie sessions here, one of the things I have a hard time doing is getting shooters, because in the past they're like, well, we don't want to be told where to shoot, excuse me. And I always try to explain that I almost never add in a shot where the goalie knows where the puck's going, even at a young age, unless they're, U9, U10, and they're really struggling with their glove or block or something. Then you can always have a shot that leads them in a direction. But just having the ability to make that goalie have to react is so important in terms of just understanding how to stop a puck, because even at the U9, U10, they don't tell you where the puck is going. So why we spend all our times with, I'm going to shoot to your glove, I'm going to shoot to your low blocker. Like, I guess like we just kind of took it for what it was when we were like years ago. And we're like, okay, that makes sense. But like you said, as you grow, like the options and the ability to read the play, the ability to react has become so essential in the game that we can't not start training that at such a young age. So I think that's a really, really important point that you put out. Like what was the catalyst for you for kind of like realizing, okay, like we need to make that switch from a more structured into a more dynamic play reading type of training session?
I think that started your last year of playing. And it was, it kind of happened by accident with your training partner that summer, Evan Butenhouse. And he came in and he had a pretty good package, like super athletic, big, looked much more like a goalie than you did skating. And when you look at kind of the career path and the way you guys went, you were always a little bit ahead of him. But when you put you guys on a training session, and if anybody didn't know who the 2 of you were, every single guy would have been like, man, Evan is way better than Jamie. And I'm not saying this to disparage him or you. This is where this catalyst came from. And we spent a lot of the time just trying to get him to read the release, and he was doing pretty good. And then he went to the Islanders prospect camp, and he came back and he didn't play very well. He was really frustrated with because he felt really good going in because of all the training sessions. And I just kind of thought, like, what does Jamie do so much better than Evan? Because they don't look they don't look similar when they're training. And with you, it was your instincts. It was your ability to read the game. It was your ability to see the game in slow motion. He had the advantage on you in every single skill set you could imagine. But you were just a better goalie at that time. And that's kind of where things changed. And it was the week after that New York Islanders kind of prospect camp where I'm like, okay, I got to make a change with this guy in this training to get him to be better when he goes to play games. So we did. We made a change. And over the 2 or 3 years that I worked with him, he kept getting better until he was an ECHL All-Star, had a couple call-ups in the AHL, got some offers in Norway. And he's a career kind of mid-pack pro guy, but he's really changed the way he's played. And that was kind of the catalyst for me to really change the way that I was coaching at that time. And it kind of came back to like literally that summer with you and Evan.
Yeah, I guess like it's funny that you say that, because like you and I will talk about how we know that I wasn't that great at a lot of things, most things. But yes, I had whatever that it factor was when it came to reading the game. It came to instincts. And it's also one of the reasons that I drove myself crazy, because I kept trying to prove everything. And I should have just accepted the fact that I was good at other things, and let's build upon that and stay happy when playing hockey. But like when you're looking at, looking at the future of goalie development, I think this is something that's really kind of intrigued me as someone who's going to take more of a role in youth hockey development and minor hockey development going forward. Like I'm always thinking about like, what can I do in order to create the largest crop of really good goalies that are going to have success within a program. And so whether that's on the, the private goalie coaching side or the team goalie coaching side, like where do you think the evolution of goalie coaching is going to go? Or is that a place where this is the pinnacle of coaching?
Well, I think every year we've always believed we're in the pinnacle of goaltending. That's never changed. And if you go back to 2010, and we believed that was the best goaltending of all time. We go back to 1995, same thing. And I think we were right to believe that at that point. I think today, this is the best goaltending in the world that the world has ever seen in the games of hockey. And we would be right. In 10 years, we're going to say the same thing. It's constantly going to keep getting better. How things are going to change, man, I don't know. Like, we'll see. And I mean, it's like young, creative, eager minds like you two that are probably going to come up with the next thing. And then kind of old, crusty dinosaurs like me are going to be like, man, that kind of makes sense. And we're going to steal it and pass it off as our own. That's kind of the way it works. And we'll start teaching it and we'll start talking about it. But I don't know, is it going to go more towards virtual reality training, like the Sensorina thing? Is it going to go more towards vision training, which I still think we're just dabbling in the vision training thing. I think there's way more there than we've hit yet. We'll see. Like, what's going to happen with equipment? What's going to happen with rule changes? I don't know where we're going to go, but it's going to go somewhere, and we're all going to have to adapt. And I think that's the one thing that makes this really fun is, like I said at the very beginning of this chat, over 20 years, I've had to change the way I coach 3 or 4 times. So we'll see. We'll see. Because as goalies, it's sometimes we try to think, or we try to reinvent the wheel, and we don't need to. But when we have to reinvent because of rule changes, that's when we, I think, do our best work. Like the stick shaving thing that we talked about yesterday, like stuff like that.
Wait.
Let's not even get to that. Jamie, you're wrong. Derek, you're right.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that was actually my next question, but Ben, I know you popped up, so let you go in a second. I was going to say, like, at what point, where do you, for a lot of people, like, you always want to progress and you want to develop, and you said, don't reinvent the wheel. That's something that we've said a lot. It's something that you and I, Derek, talk about in terms of something's not broken. Like, why are we trying to fix it? Like, I think the best example for me, in my opinion, so I'm saying this is opinion, the Panda save, the Panda execution, isn't solving anything. It's basically just trying to put a Band-Aid on a post play that can be corrected by better reads, better ability to, execute save selection. So how do you how do you dance that line between like progress for the sake of progress or progress out of necessity? Is it just something you identify, or you just keep working with the status quo until something doesn't work and then you reassess and readjust?
Well, I think like an example of the panda or the stick thing or box control, I think it is something, number one, it is fun to see on the internet. Now, if goalie coaches are posting this and this is all they're doing, that's an issue. But if a goalie coach posts 2 or 3 videos in a week because he spent 20 minutes in one class teaching this concept, that's fine, right? And we don't see that behind the scenes. But to me, like trying to teach the panda, and I always think about it in terms of return on investment. If my return on investment of 8 hours of teaching the panda, what am I missing in those other 7 hours so they could be doing something that is going to help this goalie progress further? I don't want to spend 8 hours teaching this one move. Sure, it may have some value at some point in the game, but why am I spending so much time on this one thing when it's just a tool in the toolbox? So guys have to understand that. Same with box control. Like I've had a lot of kids come to me, actually a lot of parents come to me lately and ask like, oh, do you pull out the leashes and teach these guys box control? My answer is like, yeah, I do it once at the beginning of the summer for 20 minutes. And if I explain it properly, I should never have to do it again. But I know a couple guys that spend 4 or 5 hours a week with the ropes out and goalies making saves with the ropes out, jamming and filling the box. It's like, teach it once, let the kids see it, let them understand the concept. Now they have it, and then move on. And bring all those concepts together to make one total package of a goaltender. So that's kind of my thought process on that.
Yeah, I just want to be like preface something. So like I've skated with a lot of goalie coaches in my life, and I continue to meet and interact and stuff. But I do think that you have the unique advantage where you are incredibly good at communicating and breaking complex topics down into very simple things. So I can see why, a box control lesson for you takes 20 minutes, because you're able to identify, what do I need to cover? What is this goalie actually absorbing and understanding? And how can I say it in a way that's going to get through to everybody? So you're very, very good at that. But I do agree that sometimes we do try to overkill a lot of things, or you see someone in Sweden doing box control with one of their pros, and all of a sudden everything I need to do is box control with my pros, or I'm only doing RVH attacks. Or like when I do think it's funny where I started posting a lot of overlap to RVH videos, and how like we talked about that's a really important transition, and now everyone's posting RVH to overlap drills, and which is good because most people are very bad at it. So I'm actually glad that's happening. But in a world where everyone's like communicating and connected, it is important to try to see the forest from the trees and not get caught up in what is everyone else doing in coaching, and what do my goalies need in order to get them better. Now, Ben, I cut you off like twice, so like I know you had a question, so throw it out there.
I mean, I actually am really happy where that conversation went. I'm also really happy anytime anyone brings up overlap to RVH. Like we were spoiled in the playoffs so far with that. Like Philip Gustafson, one of the best in the world at it. Actually, Bobrovsky, one of the best in the world at it. It's really fun to, as a goalie coach and as a former goalie, to like just watch those guys do those things, because you watch it in a game and you don't think anything of it. Like most people would not even notice it. But when we see it, we're like, how did he do it that cleanly over and over again? And so my question that I thought we'd kind of end on, because we all grew up with this, but like to me, Sergei Bobrovsky was one of the biggest influences on me growing up, right? He broke into the league when I was 14. Jamie, you would have been 15. Derek, you would have been like, again, just really getting into work with goalies. Like, yeah, on your second retirement. But I wanted to hear Buja's opinion. I've been like Sergei Bobrovsky, one of the most influential goalies on me my whole life. I've been so happy to see this run for him. He got paid when he deserved to get paid, and now he's playing like he deserves to be paid. And
he was just a hibernation, man. He got paid went to South Florida. You get, hey, we're not that great. I don't have to play. And all of a sudden you get a run and takes off.
Yeah, but I want to hear it. Have you had fun watching the Bobrovsky run?
Well, let's preface this answer with I'm a Leaf fan. So was it fun watching Bobrovsky in the second round? No. Is it fun now? Yes. Like Bobrovsky was a punchline for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Like he's a guy who backed up Alex Lyon in the first 3 or 4 games of the first round. Like wasn't even getting a sniff.
Jamie beat Alex Lyon. Fun fact, Jamie's 1-0 career against Alex Lyon. So
basically I'm better than Bobrovsky.
Yeah. But he was a guy that Paul Maurice didn't have that much confidence in going into that series. Like he was hurt at the end of the year, but it's not like he had a great year. He was better this year, but he was a guy who was a punchline. This is a guy who is a 2-time Vezina winner. 2-time Vezina winner, and he became a punchline. And, well, I mean, he's writing history now. He's writing his own story, and I want to see Florida win. I want to see the crowning moment of him getting that Conn Smythe because he deserves it. And like I don't know him personally, but I've never heard a story saying that he's not a good guy. And he just, to me, he's a guy who, when you watch him, you can tell he loves playing the game and he loves being a goalie. And as a goalie coach and as a former goalie, like that's really all you could ask for is like to watch guys that you could tell love playing the game. And there's guys in the NHL that you watch and you know, like they do this because they're really good at it. They don't love it. They make a lot of money at it. When you watch guys like Bob play, it's like, man, this guy just loves being a goalie. And there's nothing better than that for us as guys who just love the position of goaltending to watch. So I'm having a lot of fun watching Bobrovsky, and I'm hoping that they cap it off and he gets his consummate reward and he finishes his story because he deserves it.
Yeah, Ben's on this like mission about Bobrovsky, seeing just childhood idol, just finally having success, but like he just loves it. But the thing is for me is I just like watching good goaltending. And the things that Bobrovsky is able to do blow my mind. There was, it would have been in game 3 or 4, probably, I think at 4. There was just this like subtle transition where he was in a butterfly overlap and then somehow was able to extend and push over to get to the back door. And the shot didn't even hit the net. And I just remember rewinding that like 4 times. And I'm just like, how does someone do that? And for me, that was always frustrating because I just realized I would never be able to do that, no matter how hard I tried. So it's just, yeah. Buj, thanks for joining us. We definitely really appreciate it. Where can people find you? Your social media, your business, like on ice. Tell everyone a little bit more about that, and before we sign off.
So anybody can find me on Instagram at Bujan_goaltending. I take Jamie a lot, chirping him, or we collaborate a lot on some of the stuff. I'm on YouTube under Bujan Goaltending. I post some stuff there, talking to kind of some table talk stuff with Jamie also. Talking to a lot of stuff is kind of geared towards goalie parents. Or you can look up on Ice Hockey Performance Center in Hamilton, Ontario. Yeah, that's basically that's where I am. That's where I live. I live in the great metropolis of Caledonia, Ontario. And I would be there until I'm in the ground.
I feel like we had a lot of disrespect for cheering for Bobrovsky, who was undrafted out of the Russian third league. Like, we're going to just ignore that fact, Jamie. Like, we've talked 100 NHL games. Yeah, and I'll keep bringing it up. Third Russian league. He played in Novokuznetsk.
I don't know what that means.
The more interesting story is the Vegas Golden Knights with their 13-string goalie.
No, that's not interesting.
Stanley Cup championship, guys.
This is look, they lost last night. Anything's possible. Go Dallas. The simple story is when you have so much more money on your roster than the cap lets you in the playoffs, you have better players in front of the goalies that you put in net. So the key is just cheat a little bit and you're fine.
Hey, you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, man. Tampa Bay Stanley Cup doing the same thing.
Well, Vasilevsky's pretty good. But yeah, the key is just pay defensemen more who play really good defense, and then Jamie can win a Stanley Cup.
I like that plan a lot, actually. Now that you mention it, that makes way more sense to me. I'll come out of retirement. Well, we really appreciate you having on your insight, and definitely won't be the last time. I think you popped in my head. I think having another episode for goalie parents would be really good because that's something that you are now a goalie parent. you are on the other side. You made the horrible decision to allow your child to be a goalie, but it's definitely, I'm curious to hear your thoughts of that in a larger setting. But so thanks everyone for listening. Like, subscribe, you give us a rating. Ben is our stats guy, and he says that ratings do help, and we appreciate all of them.
Need those ratings.
We need those ratings. Don't subscribe to Ben on Patreon. Subscribe to my Patreon, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks a lot.